So good afternoon to everybody. So my presentation will be focused on voluntary program, which was running in Slovenia now for the last 7 years. And here there will be some evaluation about this. So first starting with some data, this was already explained by Jaka. I will not repeat this. Maybe the limitation that we have no more than 500,000 cattle in Slovenia is that our land is small and covered by forest, about 61%. And there are also some mountain area. And of course, these are some limitations that we cannot keep more than 500,000 cattle. So the first data regarding the prevalence of BVD in cattle population in Slovenia is about 30 years ago. And during the first screening in 1994 and 1995, there was about 31% of cattle herds positive. And of course, later, when we look on the breeding herds, we obtained data from this year, from 1997 to 2003, that there are about between 13 and 20% of animal positive. And we can see here the percent of herds which were detected positive during this time. So these herds were with at least one positive animal. We can see from 36 to 57. So why these numbers are going up? Because also the number of tested animals were going up, and also the number of animals per herd were going up during this time. So regarding the strains which are circulating in Slovenia, these are the majority of them. They are from subtype 1F and 1D. These are our autochthonous strains which are circulating for several decades in Slovenia, but nearby these two, which are in the majority of herd, there were detected also 5 another subtypes of strains, and in total we obtained about 20 different strains which are circulating in Slovenian cattle population. Of course, some of them, there were also imported strains, and some of them, there are autochthonic strains which are present in our area almost for decades. So regarding the monitoring or education program, it was started almost 20 years ago. First idea with Professor Grom and the colleagues. And of course, during this time, they were focused on some herds, and we tried to eliminate the virus from some herds. During this time, still the methods were in development to implement for the routine testing. So this was starting with the PCR and antigen ELISA testing, and of course ELISA test for antibody testing. So the current status about the BVD eradication programs in Europe, you already know from Jaka publication from this year. So Slovenia is one of the smaller countries here in middle of the Europe, and of course our neighboring countries are doing their voluntary or compulsory programs, and some of them they were already nearby the free status. So the principle of our voluntary program was published this year in this manuscript, and you can read a bit deeply some data there, but here I will present you some results from this publication. So why these data are important? Because this is the description of our program, how this was done in last 7 years, and also some results which are explaining what is the situation in these herds which were tested during this voluntary program. So the principle of this voluntary program, each herd is starting with unknown status. And of course, for the recognition of BVD-free status, there is necessary to test young stock animals which are between 7 and 30 months old. And this need to be tested 2 times. And if all tested animals from this group are negative 2 times, of course, this herd is receiving BVD-free status. Of course, also additional measurements regarding biosecurity need to be implemented. And this free status is then put for individual herds for 1 year. And after 1 year, this herd need to be retested again to maintain the BVD free status. And this is, of course, repeating each year. If any of these animals here from this youngster group is positive for antibody, this means that herd is infected and virus is circulated into the herd. And of course, animals from the herds, all animals need to be tested by PCR. So we are testing all animals from the herds in first step, and then also newborn calf in first week after the birth, they are testing by real-time PCR. All identified presently infected animals are slaughtered, which are virus positive. And of course, after 12 months after the last animals which was removed from the herd, which was positive, then this herd can start with testing of young stock animals. And this, of course, starting again 2 times. And then this herd is receiving BVD free status. So if herd is positive, this takes about 18 months. And if herd is negative, this status is received in 6 months. So regarding the results about the testing which was done between 2014 and 2020, in total, about 5,000 animals were testing during this time. And you can see here that there are percent of detected positive animals from 11 to 26% of tested animals. And in average, this is about 15% of tested animals were positive by ELISA test for the BVD antibodies. On the herd level, we tested in total 348 herds, and 87 were positive. This mean in average that 25% of tested herd were detected with antibody positive animals. This is included only these animals which are in group of animals between 7 and 13 months old. And through this, we can see that 75% of tested herd are without antibody during this screening in last 7, were without antibody during this screening in the last 7 years. Regarding the detection of the virus, this was detected in about 10,000 animals during the last 7 years, and in total 267 animals were detected positive. This is about 3% from the total population which was tested, and the remaining about 97% of animals were negative. This percent is a bit higher than it was observed from our previous study, because when we tested by routine testing in the laboratory, maybe 5 years ago, we determined which percent of tested animals are positive. It was about 1.3% of tested animal positive. Of course, here are included animals which are defined from previously defined positive herds, so which were detected positive for antibodies. And because of this, this percent is a bit higher. On the herd level, so in total, 236 herds were detected, were tested in total for virus by PCR method, and only 31% of them there were detected with at least 1 persistently infected animals. But usually we detect in our herds about 3, in average about 3 persistently infected animals per herd. So regarding officially free status, this number are rather small. Previously, there was one question about what was the population, or what was the percent of the herd which were included in the voluntary program. This percent is low, is less than 5% of our herds which were included in voluntary program. And of course, only some of them there were finally receive officially free status of BBD-free hertz. You can see these numbers in different years. So this is rather very minor number of hertz. But we can see from this picture also that not all hertz were remain their status through these 7 years, but we can see about half of these hertz which were detected and confirmed BBD-free status were also negative after 6-7 years. So this means that the system is working, but of course some of these hertz were infected, or some of these hertz just disappear from the system because we don't know really the reason, if farmer just stopped the testing or there is some other reason. As was previously shown, this is the map of Slovenia where these herds were located. We can see that they are placed throughout all the map of Slovenia, but this number of herds are very, very small. Of course, always when we are talking about a voluntary program for the farmers, important information is the laboratory cost or cost of this, what need to be performed to that hertz is receiving BBD-free status. And we calculated in this manuscript also the laboratory cost for the testing, and we calculate that for BBD negative hertz, which have in average about 13 animals which were need to be tested each year for keeping this free status. The laboratory costs were about 100 euro per year, and for positive hertz this number is about 200 euro per year. So this is cost which is need to be paid by the farmer. And of course, in additional cost for sampling, which is not included to this calculation, are also some administrative costs which are related to the receiving this BBD-free status. This need to be included into this calculation. So there are several reasons why no more hertz were achieved BBD-free status in this last 7 years of running voluntary program. And maybe first is that several farmers started with the program, but when they received the information that they don't have an infection in hertz and they are without antibody, they just stop it with the laboratory testing. There are several farmers are not see any benefit also to having officially confirmed BBD-free status. Thus, this awareness about the cattle health and BBD-free status is still very low in our country. And this is also BBD-free status is not fully accepted as additional value of cattle health. Of course, there is some necessary administrative paperwork which is needed, and farmers usually don't love this part, but this part, of course, is necessary. And of course, there is relatively high risk for reinfection of our herds. You can see that about 25% of herds are infected, and if herds are very close to each other in each village, on some village, or if they are located in village close to other herds, the possible risk for high is very high for reinfection. And these farmers already know, and they are aware of this, and some of them they just stop it with the laboratory testing. There are also some positive output from this voluntary program. Of course, since 2014, now farmers have for the first time in Slovenia possibility to receive officially BBD-free status. And of course, when you have BBD-free status, this is related also with the improvement of the production, well-being, and production parameters, which are recognized usually by farmers as a positive outcome from this. And we have received several positive feedback information, especially from farmers which were positive and which were eliminated virus from the herds. So what is positive also that 236 positive herds were started with elimination, and the majority of them they're finished with the elimination of the virus, but only some of them really finish with BVD-free status. About 2.9% of persistently infected animals from tested were detected positive for BVDV virus, and they were euthanized or slaughtered, so they were removed from the population. Probably this is also some impact on the improvement of the situation. And this study confirmed that about 70% of Slovenian cattle population is not infected, and these are number of the herds which can receive BVD-free status if we will starting with the really program. Of course, several positive feedback information were collected from farmers, as I already explained you before. Also, veterinarians have positive feedback after elimination of persistently infected animals. BVD program on voluntary basis, of course, is paced exclusively by farmers. Next step is for Slovenia is moving from to the compulsory national program, because we can see now that with voluntary program we will not finish this situation. Nevertheless, during the running program of the first voluntary program, several cattle has already achieved significant improvement of the health status and of course successfully maintained this free status for several years. Of course, there is a question when Slovenia will start with national program. This is the big question. Of course, decision makers have to decide it if this will be started in 2022. Probably after 6, 7, 8 years, we will finish with 0% of positive herds. I would like to thank you, my colleagues, which are not on the first page of this presentation, especially for administration of the Republic Slovenia, for food safety and veterinary sector plant protection, to the Breda, Hrvatin, Jedrt, Mauer, private veterinary practitioners and farmers which were part of this program, and also my colleague from Veterinary Faculty, University of Ljubljana. Thank you.